Well, good morning everybody. Welcome to my little corner of the world, and today we're going to address my painting. Now, Friday I got everything kind of like laid out on this guy, and I got my reference here, so I'm going to move him just a little bit over this way so it's not moving so much. I may even grab another piece of tape and do this. Okay, so not too bad. Maybe down here, hold it in place. Yeah, somewhere along the line I got there we go. I just wanted to be one place where I can work with it. But what I was looking at when I was working on this, I got thinking, okay, I wanted to study this to find out which direction I want to go. Now, one thing I got here is he looks really fat. So he's a lot thinner here. So I'm going to thin him out. And so I really like this part here. I like this. And then some of this is so direct. It's so beautiful coming through here. Now, right here, I got to change that up a little bit because of the way that goes here. It's not exactly like this, so I'm going to change that. So after studying this a little bit, I was thinking about down here. I really like that. So what I'm going to do, just enable this. And whenever you get to this point with your painting, you start working less and less. You don't necessarily want to continue to work. But what I liked about here is this caused a little bit of a reflection. I'm just going to put that in there. Right there, put it here. I just want to bring up a little bit of reflection there. Make it feel like it's there. Okay. So I'm going to go like that, like that. There. Okay, so let's see how that looks on camera. Okay, it makes it feel like there's a reflection back there. I've been studying this thing since then. Okay, so another thing I'm looking at, I like this body right here. But I noticed that I'm going to have to go back in here and work because this comes this way. It's not straight. It actually comes down and up. This goes over, so there's a little bit like this. So this is how we do this. And we just like pick and choose where we want. Okay? So a lot of this stuff, like I got this little kind of light area right here that kind of comes down. I'm going to put right there. It's just a little reflection on there. And so you're really just kind of looking for those things that make it type thing. Just make it. So I can come here a little bit. And I'm stepping back. I'm really enjoying the process. Now, how do we thin this out? How do I make that feel like he's not so fluffed up? Because, it's really pretty close to what we're seeing here. Yeah? But I'm going to look here. I want to come in and curve down this way. Now I'm using straight lines rather than curved lines. I've always done that. Got him there. That looks pretty good. And now like this. Now because of that, now see right here, I've got to darken this up a little bit here. Got to go some dark here, but I put this white in to kind of help amplify it a little bit. So when I put my purple in there, I'll do that. But how do I thin him out to where he doesn't look, when I look at him, the relationship is with here is pretty close to there. Now this is a combination picture. I used it from two different images type thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that on there, and I'm going to step back and want to study it a second. And I call this my 320 rule. And the 320 rule dictates that you want to work 3 minutes at your easel. You want to step back for 20 minutes and just study. And if you do that, what winds up happening is it gives you the idea that the mistakes you've made were even correct. You haven't worked long enough on it to mess things up. But what you have done is you worked on it enough to put down some color, step back, study it, and then go back into it. And that's the important part. You want to be able to study it where it goes. But right now, we're going to do some work on this so I can show you. I'm going to do a negative in this. I'm going to move you to the other side so you can see this as I'm doing this. Okay, so I'm going to come this way here. And we're going to thin that bird out a little bit. Okay, because I like crows. I don't necessarily like them all fuzzed up, but I definitely like them where they have kind of an angular feel, so they have a little bit more aggression. So I'm going to come in here. I'm just going to grid this in here. that. In fact, I might just bring it a little more. And you can always go back and forth. See, I like that a little better. This right here. And this actually, there's this little bit, it's a feather that kind of comes like this. I like that. So you kind of pick and choose things. See, that right there helped out an awful lot. And then if you want to make sure, now see, obviously, now I'm using a different brush. I'm in here, and I'm also using kind of a different color. It's going to dry a little bit lighter. But I can come in here and kind of correct things to where I can make them where I want. You can kind of see some of these things. It's like this. Some of these things that I'm doing here, okay, like right here, and filling that in, okay. By filling it in, it takes away the distraction and gives me more. And sometimes a bigger brush is what you want, sometimes it's not. I'm going to look here. I'm going to thin that out because that's kind of thin there in his tail feathers. I'm going to come here, I'm going to go in a little bit. I'm going to define this stuff out a little bit later. And what I like about here is this. So there's certain things that I'm really enjoying about this bird, or both of these birds. And I don't necessarily want to correct anything. All I want to do is just making sure, okay, like right here, this gives you a good example. This is, let me see, make sure you can see it. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to come this way. Okay, see how this kind of rounds off? It's round like that? Well, it isn't. It's more like this. It's got that feel. And we come in here with this. We come in here. So see what happened when I did that to the bird? I gave a little bit more oomph. Now what I can do also is I'm going to come back and I'll bring in my purple and I'll work with that a little bit. Now something that also I just noticed. I'm going to pull that like that. I want to do that. That brings that closer to there. So these little tiny nuances I'm doing are really important. Okay, and I'm going to, and you want to fill it in. You don't want to have, sometimes you want to have a little bit of this darkness showing through. Other times you want to have it solid. You don't want to have anything impacting that at all. Okay, so when I'm looking at this, I'm stepping back, I'm taking a look, I'm really liking what I'm seeing. But again, what I really want to reiterate is the 320 rule. We don't want to do anything that's going to impact it in such a way that's going to be negative. And part of the beauty of this is I can go back in here, okay. See, I just corrected that whole beak. Now see, I haven't even added the highlight on there, so that's going to be really kind of cool. I might just bring that down. Okay, now let's look at these tail feathers. Okay, one thing I'm looking at these tail feathers right here, and they're more, you know, they're not rounded and blunt like that. So I'm going to grab, actually I'm going to use a different brush. I'm going to use a finer, I'm going to use a, what is this? It's a 2-aught. It's made by Princeton. It's got a poly tip on it. It's really a beautiful brush. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just do some real kind of sharp. And it kind of comes down like this. Ruffle these feathers a little bit, because this is kind of how they are. You know, most people when they're working with things like this, they really don't. They look at more the overall shape, and they don't thin them out. And that's the whole thing. You need this. You need to thin these guys out to make them have impact. And of course, we come here, we come down, and I'm going to bring that up. Now see how I established that there's a claw wrapped around that this pole or whatever it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here. And I kind of like the idea that's kind of like this abstract shape, so I'll probably just leave that. So I'm going to step back. I'm studying him. I like how he thinned out a little bit. I think that's awesome. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to add some these hairs that kind of like that, and so that adds a little bit of like curiosity to there. It makes it look a little more birdie type thing. Let me see if I can move this. I'll move this back to this side, even though I will hide a little bit, so you can kind of see where I put that red in the background. Now, inherently, what did it do? Okay, what did it do? Now, one thing I want to do here is this right here. I want to add some little ruffles here. Yeah, see, that makes the birds look a little tougher, you know, little tiny nuances like that. And you do not get this from sitting at the easel. You get it from stepping back. You get it from actually just, let's see here, oh, I like this. And this color right here is such an odd color. This is actually Ked Red Light. I think this is like a pyro red. So you can see a difference between how this is drawing as a CAD and this is drawing as a pyro, which is actually okay, because what will happen is when I put my next coat of red over top, which will be the pyro red, you're going to start seeing some differences here. So I'm going to come here, move. When you're moving your reference and you're working in an area so you can see it, just tape it down so it's not moving. Don't hold on to it. Actually tape it to there, because what it's doing is it's actually giving you a stationary fixed space. Okay, so one thing I'm going to do right here is the way this part of this, I don't know if this is part of his wing right here or whatever, but it keeps coming up and I like that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do that, and that goes between his legs right there, so everything has a relationship. I'm going to come up a little bit so it brings it. And like I said, it is a back and forth thing. So I'm going to do that. Though these little things right here, on this right here, actually here is part of his wing. So I'll probably just leave that. And I'll just do a little correction later. But this part right here is all solid. So when that happens, basically, now we want to go in, and I want to use a little wider brush so I can correct this. And I'm going to grab, I want to grab a flat, but I don't think I got a good flat here, so I will, oh, actually, here we go. Okay, so I'm using this is a titanium by Robert Simmons. As you can see, it's a well-loved brush. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab my purple. And we're going to start defining a few things out here just by shape. Okay, stuff that I enjoy. Oh, come on. Fine. Oh, hang on. I got it over here. Okay. So as we go on with life and we go on with things, we want to make sure that I'll bring that this way. I'm going to darken that up. And actually, I'm going to come in here. One thing, like I notice, we have this cart coming down. Got a couple of those wing feathers coming up. And I'm going to come in here because a lot of these, it's real dark down here, so I'm just going to come off there and I will refine that later. And basically what I'm doing is, you see, I like that much better. It feels right. Okay, we're going to come, instead of like this, I want to bring that this way. You can kind of see it. Now, one thing we got here is we got that thing right there. And this actually, I'll just do that. It's kind of representative of that, and I will actually change that depending on my so you can kind of see these little nuances I'm doing. Changes the dynamics, also the structure, gives it a little more body, a little more oomph, I'll say. Okay, I'm looking here. Taking this, I'm going to darken it up a little bit here. There. Pull back. So it has that feeling of ruffled feathers. Yeah, okay. And you can see how I'm pulling my brush, so it gives it that kind of like fluffy feeling right there, okay? So I'm going to come down here, like that. I'm going to ruffle it up a little bit here, so it has a little bit of dynamicism there. I mean, it's kind of broken up. I'm using the side of the brush too, so it's not like I'm, you know, so a lot of these things I'm doing, now this is just this color right here. This isn't adding anything more to the mix. So it's really important that you want to keep that in mind, is that the stuff you're doing all just keeps adding in. Now, I'm going to stop. I put a lot of work into this, just this little bit. It doesn't seem like it, but I have. I'm just going to stop, and I'm going to study this for a day to see where I want to go. I answered those questions I wanted, but I'm not going to go in and finish this. In fact, more likely, I will just glaze over top of this, protect it, or actually do a more tighter, do another coat of red on here, which will basically hide all this, even out the back, and actually bring you kind of unified together. And I might just, wait for this to dry, add a little more. It's still kind of wet there. It's not hurting anything. And then I will do the coat of red, because I've already glazed over this once. I'll do the coat of red, glaze over that. And then I need to start working with, some colors that are going to be oomph these things. Like one thing I really enjoy doing about this whole mess, and let me grab this right here, is doing this kind of stuff. I love doing this, because this right here gives the painting kind of that, there's some tension I like adding. So I'm going to move you to this side so you can see how I do this. Okay, I'm going to step back. And sometimes I just like to go in and just add some tension that normally wasn't there. Typically I do this toward the end, but I want to see how this looks now. So when I do get to that finish, I have what I want. Okay. Okay, now see, I'm loving that. I'm loving that. This is my technique. You're okay to try it, give it a shot. But look what it did toward the overall painting. It grounded it down here. It gave it some oomph. You know, watch this. Okay, so if I do that, I'm stepping back looking, I'm loving it, I'm enjoying it. I'm going to say, you know what? Let's do it here. So see what it's doing? It's kind of unifying this whole thing, and I don't really have to do a whole lot more work to this. I'm going to pull that there. I'm going to just scrape it across or give it all this beautiful tension. Okay? Now if I want to unify this with this one, I'll come this way. Well, look at that. It brought both pieces together, didn't it? Okay? So I will probably leave some of this showing through. But go in. Leave some of that. Cover this. You know, it's going to take a few coats, but what it's going to do, it's going to unify this thing really beautifully. It's dripping. Means my brush was too wet. Now also I want you to notice, did you see me using any palette? Okay, so I'm going to come in here. So it kind of brings in a different aspect, doesn't it? I'm going to come here. When this dries, you know, that's where I want these to be kind of mangy birds, so I'm going to do this here. I might just let me see, I'm going to see, I'm liking that. That has a very nice, a good feel to it. See, all these little nuances I'm adding into it. It just adds dynamics to the painting itself. It's also what individualizes my work from yours and what's yours from mine. So we can do that. This is the true creative process. If you look at, okay, what we first learned. We first learned to copy the image. We always do. It's the end of the story. You can't get out of it. And when we do that, we wind up making exact. What changes, though, is when we start adding our own flavor to it to say, I don't necessarily want the bird there. I want to add some tension here. That's an individual thing. That's nothing to do with, is it correct, is it good, is it bad, or what is it? It's actually part of the dynamics. And I say I'm going to have to come back over that a little bit, but that's okay, because it even thinned him out a little more. We take these licenses that I'm doing here. We take them and we actually are adding to the mix by doing that. We're adding to the character that we're adding to this. We're adding to the character that. If you can see that, we're adding to this. Okay. Sorry you can't see very clear, but you can see what's happening with the dynamics of this guy now. These are actually becoming really three-dimensional. You can't hide them. Okay, so what all I'm doing is I'm just making it, come here like so, I'm going to leave it a little scratchy. And I'm this cad red light, which I really love. In this case here, it went against my other colors. I'm going to bring that down. And all I'm trying to do, because I've already got this one red on here. Okay. So I'm looking at this thing going, I'm really loving this. Okay? I'm really loving this. Okay? So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to make some more tension. Now, what did this tension do for the painting? That should be a better question for you. What did the tension do? Did the tension add to it? Did it take away? We each have our own opinion on it, right? But from my standpoint, that tension adds a dialogue to this picture and this painting that wasn't there before. It's not in here. It's in here. This is my signature. This is my signature. People are going to try it. People are going to experiment with it. Inherently, they're not necessarily going to, you know, I want to try something here. Okay. I'm going to add some. This is it won't be a verbal tension, but it'll be an understood one. See, by doing that, causing this texture above it, it's giving me something that wasn't there before. It's giving me a third dimension. So I'm going to come here. That. I'm going to do this. I'm liking it. Now, there's also another reason why I'm doing this. We enter pictures from the left, we exit from the right. So this right here, where's my simplistic texture? From here, as I'm moving this way, I'm going up, right? Now, in order to come back here, I've got to bring it back in. Now, I've already done that by the way this shape is and this shape is. But as long as you keep in mind that we enter paintings the same way we read, we enter from the left and we exit from the right, and you always want a counterclockwise motion. And I just like that tension. I like this part right. I like that. That is so wonderful. It kind of gives it a Japanese feel with this tension. Also, the more I'm looking at it, this one could be done if I wanted. Okay, I just got to define out the eye a little bit. But you see what happened by me doing that. So guys, in the interim of all these things, this is how I work. It didn't take me very long to get what I was trying to say on it. And again, my voice says here, my voice is not the reference. So guys, hope you enjoyed this. If you have questions, please post them below. Hopefully this has been inspirational and also informational. Don't be shy. If you have questions about techniques and colors and paint